All of you sit with the book and the pen. Okay, you need to work out along with me. Okay, so the model 5 is model 5. It consists of two main parts. One is columns and struts. Columns and struts. This is one part of this model. Okay, and another part is deflection of beams. And deflection of beams. This is second part. Okay, so two parts mainly in this model: columns and struts one part, deflection of beams other part. Okay, initially I'll be starting with the first part of the model, that is columns and struts. Okay, so in this particular part, no, first part of the model, there are a few very important questions which may appear in your examination, external examination. Okay, 3-4 derivations are there. If you become perfect with all those derivations, definitely you will have a question on any one of the derivation. Okay, let me discuss let me discuss the definitions of the column or the strut. What is the meaning of column? What is the meaning of column? What is the meaning of column? Column means it is a member which will carry the axial compressive load. Okay, the column means it is a compression member so in commonly what we will call it is, in common language what we will call it is, we will call it as a pillar, correct? So we will call it as a pillar in common language. So technically it is a column. Column is a member which will carry the axial compressive load, correct? So the most of the pillars they will carry the axial compressive load, that is called as column. Okay, and coming to the strut, coming to the strut or struts, it is also a compression member, it is also a column, but its end conditions will be different. Okay, here in this in the first case, in case of column, the both the ends of the column are fixed. Okay, both the ends of the column are fixed. You can see in almost all RC, reinforced concrete structures. Okay, reinforced concrete frames, all the columns are fixed in nature, both top and bottom of the column will be fixed. The strut, as I said, it is also a compression member. Okay, it is also a type of column in which the column will be inclined in nature and end conditions will be one or both the ends of the column will be pinned or hinged. Okay, end condition of the column will be, or end condition of the compression member will be hinged or pinned. It may be both ends or it may be one end of the column, then it is called a strut. Okay, the best example is the what are the members we use in a truss, steel truss, no, they are all the example of the strut. Okay, and they will be inclined in nature most of the times. Okay, they will be inclined in nature. Okay, like this. Like this you can see steel truss. Okay, if you go to the warehouses, okay, and all, there you can see this kind of a truss provided for roof of the building, correct? So whatever the members we have here, no, all these members are called as struts. All these members are called as struts. Okay, so the struts are also a members which will carry the axial force, but their inclination may be either inclined, okay, and nature of force induced will be the compression. These are all the compressive members or members subject to the axial force which are inclined in nature, and end conditions of the strut will be hinged. Either it may be one end or it may be both end. If you provide a nut and bolt system here at this junction, okay, that nut and bolt system will be, it is an example for hinged support. Okay, it is an example for hinged support. So one of the end of the member, compression member, will be hinged. Okay, so that is what is called as strut. I hope you are all clear with the difference between the column and the strut. Column is an axial member. It is a member which will carry axial force. Okay, axial force, and it will be straight in nature, and both the ends of the column will be fixed. Both the ends of the member will be fixed. That is the meaning of column. In case of strut, strut will also carry axial member, but it may be inclined. It may be inclined with some angle with the horizontal, and ends of the member may be either it may be hinged or fixed. That is the meaning of strut. Is that clear for you all, students? Any doubts here? Abhishek?
No, sir.
Okay. Now the next topic is now you are all clear with the definition or meaning of the column and the strut. Okay. Now, as I said, these columns will carry the axial forces. Axial forces. If whatever the force applied on the column, okay, whatever the force applied on the column, if it is applied along the centroidal axis of the column, okay, if it is applied along the centroidal axis of the column, what about the deformation in the column? What about the deformation of the column? There will be decrease in length of the column, correct? There will be decrease in length of the column and increase in cross section of the column. That is the deformation that will take place if the force applied is along the centroidal axis of the column. Okay, and one more condition, if both the ends of the column are fixed. Both the ends of the column are fixed. But in practical cases, we will get so many practical conditions for the column. Okay, so many practical conditions for the column. 3 to 4 different conditions we will get it. Okay, for all those conditions, what will happen is the column will buckle. Okay, column will tend to buckle. If for example, if one end of the column is fixed, okay, if one end of the column is fixed and other end is free, okay, other end is free, if you apply the force, okay, what will happen? It will deflect like this, correct? It will deflect like this. Or else, if one end of the column is fixed, okay, and another end of the column is hinged, okay, and another end of the column is hinged, then also there will be some buckling of the column like this. Okay, if both the ends of the column are hinged in nature, okay, as like a member of a truss, okay, if both the ends of the column are hinged in nature, then there will also be a kind of deformation. Okay, there will also be a kind of deformation to the column. So in all these cases, So when they undergo some particular deformation, no, there is a threshold load. Okay, there is a load at which the column will start buckling. Okay, there is a particular magnitude of the force P. Okay, there is particular magnitude of the force P for which the column will just tend to buckle. Okay, the column will just tend to buckle. That load, whatever we call it as buckling load. Okay, that load is called as buckling load. Okay, what is the meaning of buckling load? It is a load at which the column will tend to buckle. Column will start buckling. Column will start bending. That load we call it as buckling load. Okay, we will call it as buckling load. Now, as a civil engineer, we should know for a particular column what is its buckling load. Okay, as a civil engineer, we should know what is its buckling load, means what is the load at which the column will undergo deformation. Okay, so to find the expression for this buckling load, okay, to find expression for buckling load, we have the Euler's column theory. Okay, to find expression for this buckling load, we have this Euler's column theory. This Euler's proposed a theory to find the expression for this buckling load P. Okay, so based on this Euler's column theory, we will find the expression for buckling load for different end conditions of the column. Means for both the ends of the, when both ends of the columns are fixed, when one end of the column is fixed and another end is free, when both the ends of the column is hinged, when one end of the column is fixed and another end of the column is hinged. So for all these cases, now we will find the expression for buckling load. Okay, based on this Euler's column theory. Okay, so here in this topic you have total 4 derivations. Okay, 4 derivations for different end conditions. If you properly understand one particular derivation, then there is nothing in understanding. You can easily understand the next coming derivations. Okay, and the Euler's, okay, whatever the Euler's, he proposed a theory to find the expression for buckling load. Okay, before that, before going to find the expression for buckling load, he has made some assumptions. Okay, he has made some assumptions, means based on certain assumptions he had derived the equation for this buckling load. Okay, let us see what are the assumptions. Okay, what are the assumptions made in Euler's column theory. Okay, assumptions made in Euler's column theory. Okay, assumptions made in Euler's column theory. This is also very important, students. Theory question. Okay, this theory question normally they will ask. Okay, normally they will ask in the examination. Let us see what are the assumptions made in Euler's column theory. There are certain assumptions which he has made to derive the equation for buckling load or the crippling load. Okay, the first assumption is, okay, first assumption is the material is homogeneous and isotropic. This is the first assumption made. Okay, even in case of assumptions made in deriving the torsion equation, there also we have this point, correct? Material is homogeneous and isotropic. I already explained what is the meaning of homogeneous and what is the meaning of isotropic. Okay, the second assumption made is the column cross section or the cross section of the column is uniform throughout the length length. This is the second assumption made. Okay, cross section of the column is uniform throughout the length. Then third assumption is the column is initially straight, initially straight and loaded axially. Okay, the column is assumed as initially it is straight and it is loaded axially. Axially means the load is applied along the central axis of the column. Okay, that is the third assumption made. Then the next assumption is the column fails by buckling alone. This is the fourth assumption. Column fails by buckling alone. Okay, there are two main kinds of failure. Okay, one is failure by crushing. Okay, axial crushing means column will happen. What will happen? No? Column will undergo like this bulging and it will undergo failure. Okay, this is the one kind of failure. The second kind of failure is column may undergo bend like this and it may undergo failures. But Euler's assumption, whatever it is made, is column fails only by buckling alone. Okay, column fails by buckling alone. That is the next assumption. Okay, then next assumption is direct stress. The direct stress is very negligible compared to the bending stress. This is the next assumption. Okay, direct stress means load by area directly. Okay, P by cross sectional area. This is direct stress. Bending stress means it is measured depending upon the moment. Okay, moment which is acting on the column, or bending action which is acting on the column, which is measured as M by Z. Okay, so as per the Euler's theory, the direct stress, whatever the P by A value, is very negligible compared to the bending stress. Okay, we have to assume that there is no direct stress, only there is bending stress. Okay, because we are finding the load with which the column will tend to bend. Okay, that is why we have to assume it as there is no direct stress, only bending stresses are there in the column. Okay, then the last assumption is the length of the column. Okay, length of the column is very large compared to the lateral dimensions. Okay, this is the next assumption. The length of the column L. Okay, the length of the column L is very large compared to the lateral dimensions. Either it may be the width of the column or it may be the depth of the column. Okay, this length of the column is far greater than the D or B of the column. Length of the column is greater than, okay, it is very large, length of the column is very large compared to the depth or width of the column. This is the last assumption made on Euler's column theory. Okay, so these are all the assumptions made. Now the next directly we will go for the derivations. Okay, as I said, there are a few end conditions considered for this derivation of buckling load, for deriving the buckling load for a column. Okay, whatever the buckling load P is there, no, P, this buckling load mainly depends upon the end condition of the column. It depends on end conditions of the column. Okay, therefore for different end conditions, the formula for this buckling load will changes, it will vary. Okay, let us see what are the different end conditions considered for deriving the equation for this buckling load. Okay, we just cited line as, just write cited line as end conditions considered. End conditions considered. Write the cited line as end conditions considered. Okay. So there are mainly 4 different types of end conditions. Okay. There are mainly 4 different types of end conditions. First condition is both ends of the column. Both ends of the column are hinged. This is the first condition. Or pinned. This is the first end condition. Second condition is one end is fixed and another end is free. One end is fixed and other end is free. This is the second end condition considered. Third condition is both ends of the column are fixed. Both ends are fixed. This is the third condition, third end condition. The last end condition is one end is fixed and another end is hinged or pinned. One end is fixed and other end is hinged or pinned. Other end is pinned. These are all the different end conditions considered for deriving the equation for buckling load P. Okay. Therefore, there are 4 derivations for each different end conditions. Okay. There are 4 derivations for each different end conditions. You need to prepare for all these derivations. But the principle behind deriving the equation is same for all the cases. Principle behind the deriving equation is same. Okay, only the formula and moment, taking the moment, there you will get some difference. The procedure or the principle behind the derivation is same only. If you properly understand one particular derivation, then there is you can easily understand the next coming derivations. Okay. So before going to start the derivations, let me tell about the sign conventions. Okay, let me tell about the sign conventions. For example, if you have a column, assume a column having some length L. Assume a column having some length L. Okay. I am telling about the sign conventions. I am telling about the sign conventions. Okay. Assume a column of length L. Okay. If column bends like a convex, if the column bends in convex shape towards the center line of the column, okay, when the column bends in the shape of convexity towards the center line of the column, then the sign convention is considered as positive. Okay, this is considered as positive if the column bends in convex form towards the center line of the column, then the sign convention to be used is positive. Okay. In other case, if you take the same column, if the same column bends in concavity, okay, or in concave shape, okay, in concavity shape like this, then the sign convention to be used is negative. This is convexity, this is concavity. Okay, if the column bends in the shape of convexity towards the center line of the column, then sign is positive. If the column bends in the form of concave shape towards towards the center line of the column, then it is called as then we have to use negative sign. This is the sign convention. Okay, I hope up to here it is clear for you all. Is that clear? Is that clear, students? Because
Yes, sir.
okay, now we will move on to the first derivation. First derivation is with the end conditions, both ends of the column are hinged. We will take this condition and we will derive the equation for buckling load. Okay. Now write the headline as, all of you should write along with me, expression for first derivation, expression for buckling load or it is also called as crippling load. Okay, buckling load or crippling load when both the ends of the column, what is the end condition for the column? For the first case, both the ends of the column are hinged. Okay. Expression for buckling load or crippling load when both the ends of the column are hinged. Okay. Now write a figure. All of you write a figure. Now what I will do now, I will consider a column. Okay, when both the ends of the column are hinged, when you apply the load, axial load, the way in which the column will bend is like this. Okay, like this it will bend. Okay, now I will write the same figure. Now. 100% there will be a question. Okay, in our external examination, out of all these 4 derivation, definitely there will be a particular derivation. Okay, so whatever the dotted line I have written now, it is central line of the column. Okay, now so both the ends of the column are hinged, so you write a small circle, okay, small bubble kind of a thing, and you write the deflected shape of the column now. Write the deflected shape of the column. This is the dotted line is the central line of the column, and the deflected shape is ACB. The curve ACB is the deflected shape of the column with both ends are hinged. Okay. You also apply the load, axial load P, below also the same axial load P. Okay, due to this axial load, the column will bend in the form of the curve ACB. Okay, so this is hinge. Okay, this is hinge. This is the representation of hinged support. If you just write a small bubble at the end, it is the representation of hinged support for a column. Okay, let L be the original length of the column. Let L be the original length of the column. L is the length of the column. Now, for derivation purpose, okay, for derivation purpose, consider a section. Consider a section of the column at a distance x. Consider section of the column at a distance x from support A. Okay, consider a section of the column at a distance x from support A. Okay, let y be the deflection at that particular section. Y is the deflection at section x. Okay, so you mark that point C at here only. Okay, here only you mark that point C. Okay, so this is how we need to write the diagram for the columns with both ends hinged. Okay, we have considered a column AB with both ends hinged condition and the ACB. Okay, ACB is the deflected shape of the column. For derivation purpose, what we have done is we have considered a section of the column at a distance x from support A, and at that particular section y is the deflection. Y is the deflection. Okay. Now here you can write P is the crippling load or buckling load. Let P is the crippling load or the buckling load, and ACB is what? Deflected shape of the column after the application of the load. Deflected shape of the column after the application of the load. Then, considering a section at distance x, y is the deflection, amount of deflection at section x. At section x. Okay. Now, what we will do now? We will take moment due to this crippling load P. Okay, moment due to this crippling load P. Moment due to crippling load P at section X means at point C of the column. Okay, moment due to crippling load is equal to below, right? Moment due to crippling load about C is equal to, Okay, you find moment of this particular force P about C. Okay, what is moment? Moment is force into perpendicular distance. Force is P. Force is P. What about the perpendicular distance of point C from line of action of force P? What is the perpendicular distance? Tell me, any one of you? Any one of you can tell me what is moment of force P about point C? P into perpendicular distance is how much? P into Prashant? Moment of force P about point C.
Yes, sir.
Force P into
Y.
Y. Y, it is directly there, no? P into Y. What about the sign? Plus or minus? What about the sign plus or minus? Just see the sign convention. It is concave in nature. Deflected shape is concave, so the sign is negative. Sign is negative. You can also write in other way. This force P is causing anti-clockwise moment about point C. Correct? Force P is causing anti-clockwise moment about point C. Okay, anti-clockwise means again it is negative. In that way also you can predict the sign of the moment. Okay, therefore m is equal to moment m is equal to minus P into Y. Okay. Now for moment we have a generalized equation. Okay, we have a generalized equation for the moment m is equal to, that is EI into d square y by dx square. Okay, this is the generalized equation for a moment where y is the deflection, E is the Young's modulus, I is the moment of inertia of the column. Okay, this is the generalized equation for finding the moment. Okay, so there is derivation of this equation in second part of this model. Okay, in second part of this model, this deflection of beams, there we will study how this equation has come. Okay, m is equal to EI into d square y by dx square. All of you should remember this equation, students. Okay, m is equal to EI into d square y by dx square. Okay, now m is equal to minus Py, the same moment m is equal to EI into d square y by dx square. From both these equations we can write it as EI, therefore EI into d square y by dx square becomes equal to minus P into y. Correct? From both these two equations we can equate EI into d square y by dx square is equal to minus P into y. Okay. Now you take this Py to the LHS, EI into d square y by dx square plus Py is equal to 0. Now in the next step you divide the whole equation by EI. Divide the whole equation by EI, what you will get? D square y by dx square plus P by EI into y is equal to 0. P by EI into y is equal to 0. Okay. Now this is a differential equation. This is a second order differential equation with variable y and the x. Okay. It is a second order differential equation with variable y and the x. We have to find the solution of this equation. Okay, we have to find solution of this equation. So we need to follow some mathematical procedure for solving this particular equation. So if we go on solving this equation, so it becomes a lengthier process. The derivation becomes too long. So we have the direct solution. Okay, we have the direct equation for solution of this second order differential equation. So that solution, I'll write it now. The solution of the solution of above differential equation is okay, y is equal to c1 cos x root p by ei, okay, c1 cos x root p by ei plus c2 sin x root p by ei is equal to, sorry, so this is the solution of the differential equation, that is d square y by dx square plus p by ei into y equal to 0. What is that? Y is equal to c1 cos x root p by ei plus c2 sin x root p by ei. Okay, call this as equation number 1. Okay, are you understood up to here? Whatever we have considered a column of length L, okay, with both ends are hinged, and ACB is the deflected shape of the column. We have considered a section at a distance x, and y is the deflection at a distance x. Okay, deflection at the section x. Okay, so P is the load, okay, crippling load in which the column will start bending or buckling, and ACB is a deflected shape, and Y is the deflection at the X. What we have done at the initial step, we have taken moment of this P, okay, it is very easy, P into perpendicular distance Y, and sign is negative because it is concave, or this force is causing an anticlockwise moment about point C, that is why it is minus P into Y. So we have one more equation, generalized equation for this moment, that is m is equal to ei into d square y by dx square. Okay, from both the equations we can equate the RHS of both the equations, ei into d square y by dx square is equal to minus p into y. Again I have made some calculations or simplification of the equation. I have taken py to the LHS and divided by ei on both sides. By this we got second order differential equation. For that, solution is y is equal to c1 cos x root p by ei plus c2 sin x root p by ei. This is first step of the derivation. Okay, you need to remember this solution. Okay, if you remember this particular solution of this derivation, then the same equation will continue for the rest of the derivation, but we will get extra term that I will tell during doing other derivations. Okay, this is the first step where C1 and C2 are constants of integration. Okay, C1 and C2 are constants of integration. Okay, now C1 and C2 are there, no? They are constants. We have to find what is the value of those constants C1 and C2. Okay, how to find the value of constant C1 and C2? Using the boundary conditions. Okay, using the boundary conditions, if we find the values of C1 and C2, then we will get the required equation for crippling load or the buckling load. Okay, so we will move on to the second step, applying boundary conditions. Okay, it is very easy. Second step is very easy, just simple mathematics is there. Boundary conditions. Boundary conditions. Okay, boundary conditions means at ends of the column, no? At ends of the column. Okay, at point A, what is the deflection of the column? What is the value of y, students? At point A, see, at a distance x, Okay, at a distance x, deflection is y. Okay, at a distance x, deflection is y. When this x equal to 0 means at point A, what is the deflection? Tell me. What is the value of y at point A? What is the value of y at point A? Anyone? Please pay attention. What is the value of y here? See, at a distance x, y, it has got some value y. But when x equal to 0, okay, when x equal to 0 means at point A, there is no y, there is no deflection, it is 0, okay, it is 0. So this is what it is called as boundary condition, okay. Similarly, when this x becomes equal to L, when this x becomes equal to L, what about the y again? There also the deflection y is 0. So these two conditions are called as boundary conditions. That is, the first boundary condition is when x equal to 0 here, okay, where x is equal to 0, y is also equal to 0. This is first boundary condition. Okay. When you come to point B, when you come to point B, x will be, this x value becomes equal to L. When x equal to L, what about the y? Y is also equal to 0. Okay. So these two conditions are called as boundary conditions. We have to utilize these two boundary conditions to find the values of constants C1 and C2. Okay. Now I'll write the first boundary condition. First one, at x equal to 0, y is also equal to 0. This is the first boundary condition. At x equal to 0, y is also equal to 0. Now, you substitute x equal to 0 and y is equal to 0 in this equation 1. Okay. Therefore, the equation 1 becomes, y is 0 is equal to C1 cos x is there, s is there, x means it is 0 only, cos 0, C1 cos 0 plus C2 sin x is 0 again, 0 into root p by a, it becomes 0 only, C2 sin 0. So 0 becomes C1 cos 0 value is 1 plus 0, so C1 becomes equal to 0. Now you got the value of constant C1. Correct? You got the value of constant C1. Now the second boundary condition. What is the second boundary condition, students? What is the second boundary condition? At x equal to L. Okay. At x equal to L, y is equal to 0 only. Okay. At point B I am telling. At x equal to L, y equal to 0. Now in the same equation, we substitute x equal to L and y equal to 0. So y equal to 0, 0, 0 is equal to cos C1 cos 0 is there, no? So C1 value is how much? 0. Okay. C1 is 0. C1 value is 0. So you can write 0 here. Okay. C1 value is, we got it as 0. So this equation becomes 0 only. This equation becomes 0 only plus C2. We don't know the value of C2. C2 sin L root P by EI. Okay. At x equal to L, y equal to 0. So y equal to 0 is substitute. Wherever x is there, you need to substitute L. But in this first term, no, C1 value is 0. Even if we substitute x equal to L here, so as C1 value is 0, this term becomes 0. So only the second term is C2 sin L root of P by EI. Okay. Therefore, C2 sin L root of P by EI is equal to 0. Okay. So from above equation, or from this equation, from above equation, either C2 must be equal to 0, or second term sine of L root of P by EI must be equal to 0. Okay. So as C2 into product of C2 and sine L root P by I equal to 0, okay, as C2 equal to 0 and sine as product of C2 into sine L root P by I equal to 0, either the value of C2 must be equal to 0 or sine L root P by I equal to 0. Okay, but the value of C2 cannot be equal to 0. Value of C2 cannot be equal to 0. If you take so if C2 value becomes equal to 0, what happens in this equation? C1 is already, we have got it as 0. C2 also, if you substitute it as 0, the whole equation becomes 0. Y becomes equal to 0. Okay, it indicates that there is no deflection at all. There is no deflection y at all. That is the meaning. Are you understanding, friends? So by this equation, okay, by this equation we can write either C2 equal to 0 or sine L root P by I equal to 0. But if we assume C2 equal to 0 in this equation, as C1 is already 0, C2 also becomes 0, means Y becomes equal to 0. There is no deflection. It indicates that there is no buckling of the column at all. Therefore, C2 cannot be equal to 0. Okay, C2 cannot be equal to 0. But C2 cannot be equal to 0, which indicates that, or in the bracket you can write, if C2 becomes equal to 0, Y becomes equal to 0, which indicates that no buckling of the column at all. No buckling of the column at all. Okay, so the sine of L into root P by EI should be equal to 0. Therefore sine of L root P by EI equal to 0. Okay, so we assume this L root P by EI as theta, sin theta equal to 0. What should be the value of theta? Either it may be sin 0 or it may be sin pi. The theta value, it may be pi, or it may be sin 2 pi or sin 3 pi and so on. Correct? Sin L root P by EI. Okay, so if you assume L root P by E as theta, the theta value should be equal to either 0 or pi or 2 pi or 3 pi. Okay, now considering the least practical value means 0 we cannot consider because it is not a practical value, so we can consider as pi. So we can take the value of L root P by EI as equal to pi, taking least practical value, L root P by EI, that is pi, should be equal to pi. Okay, therefore squaring on both sides, you will get L square into P by EI is equal to pi square. Therefore P is equal to pi square EI divided by L square. This is what the equation for buckling load of the column with both ends hinged. Okay, buckling load of the column with both ends hinged. Okay, is that clear, students? This completes the derivation. Only two steps. First step is to take the moment of force P about C. You will get it as minus Py. Okay. We have the generalized equation for M, that is Ei into d square y by dx square. See, from both these equations we have written it as Ei into d square y by dx square is equal to minus Py. So after some simplification we got this particular equation. Okay. After that we have written the solution for this differential equation. For this solution we have determined the integration values of integration constants C1 and C2. Okay, by using boundary conditions. Boundary conditions I already explained. There are two boundary conditions for this column. At x equal to 0, y equal to 0. At x equal to L also there is no deflection, y equal to 0. So using both the conditions, okay, by substituting x equal to 0 and y is equal to 0 in this equation one, we got C1 equal to 0, and by substituting x is equal to L and y equal to 0 in the same equation and C1 equal to 0 in the same equation, here you can write if you get to any confusion, and C1 equal to 0. Okay. In the same equation we got this equation, so that is C2 into sin L root P pi a equal to 0. So from this equation either C2 must be equal to 0 or sin L root P by ei is equal to 0. Okay, C2 cannot, if you take the practical consideration, C2 cannot be equal to 0, therefore sin L root P by a equal to 0. Okay, if you assume L root P by a as theta, the theta value must be equal to what? 0 or pi or 2 pi or 3 pi and so on. Okay, considering the least practical value means considering L root P by ei is equal to pi, we can obtain the expression for buckling load P or crippling load P by squaring the equation on both our sides, that is P is equal to pi square Ei by L square. This completes the derivation. Is there any doubt, students, in this derivation? All of you understood? All of you understood? Prashant, Abhishek, Vikas?
Yes, sir.
It's an important derivation. Okay. So we'll go to the next derivation. Now the first one is completed. First one is completed. We will go to the second derivation, that is one end of the column is fixed and other end is free. Even you may get it for your internal also. Okay. Any of the derivation there is chance. Okay. So be prepared with all the derivations. Now second derivation, expression for buckling load or crippling load when one end of the column is fixed and other end is free, and other end is free. One end of the column is fixed and other end is free. Okay, this is the second derivation, number 2. Okay, now we will write the deflected shape of the column with one when the one end of the column is fixed and another end is free. Okay, let us write the original shape of the column by dotted line before applying the load. Okay, it will be straight initially, correct? It will be straight initially. Okay, here as I said, one end of the column is fixed. One end of the column is fixed and another end is free. Okay, when you apply the axial force or force P at on the column, what will happen? What will be the deflected shape of the column? Deflected shape of the column will be like this. This will be the deflected shape of the column. This is the deflected shape of the column. Okay. The original shape of the column is B. After the force being applied, the shape changes to A, B dash. Okay, the shape changes to A, B dash. Okay, similarly here also, as like previous derivation, you consider a section X, section of the column at a distance X, where the deflection is Y. Okay, as I said, the principle behind the derivation is same, but the conditions are different. That's it. Okay, and L is the original length of the column. L is the original length of the column. L is the original length of the column. Okay, let us assume A is the deflection at length L. Okay, because one end of the column is free, no, it will easily deflect like this. Okay, let us take A is the deflection at a length L of the column, or A is the deflection at point B. Okay, okay, now we need to write some introductory part. Consider a column with both one end of the column is fixed and another end is free. After applying the load, the AB dash is the deflected shape of the column. Consider a section X, okay, where the Y is the deflection at that particular section and A is the deflection at the length L or deflection at the point B. Like this, you need to write some introductory part. Okay, and P is the buckling load or the crippling load. Okay, Y is equal to deflection at section X, and A is what? Deflection at X equal to L. Okay, deflection at X equal to L or deflection at end B. Like that also you can write. Now you find the moment of force P about point C. Now call this point as C. Call this point as C. Okay, this point as C. Okay, as we determine moment about C here, okay, at this point C here. Similarly, here also you find moment about this point C. Okay, moment of crippling load at section X or moment at point C is equal to, okay, M is equal to, tell me what is the moment of force P about point C? What is the moment? Force into distance. Force is P. What about the distance, friends? What about the distance? Perpendicular distance of point C from the line of action of force P. How much? What is the perpendicular distance? Anyone? Means we want perpendicular distance of point C. Okay, so this is the line of action of the force, correct? So this is the line of action of the force. Perpendicular distance of point C from this line of action is, here we have total distance A minus Y is the perpendicular distance of point C from the line of action of force P. Okay, so P into A minus Y here, P into A minus Y. Okay, what about the sign, plus or minus? Because sign plus or minus here?
Plus, plus.
Plus sign. Okay, because it will cause clockwise movement about point C. Force P will cause clockwise movement, or you can see the deflected shape, it is convexity. The column deflected shape is convexity, that is why sign is plus. Okay, but similar to the previous problem, what is M? M is equal to EI into d square y by ds square. Same equation I will write, same procedure, but M is equal to EI into d square y by dx square. So from both these two equations, we can write it as EI into d square y by dx square is equal to P into A minus Y. In earlier derivation, E and d square y by dx square is equal to what? It was minus Py, but in this equation, in this derivation, P into A minus Y. So from this equation, okay, from these two equations, we can write Ei into d square y by dx square is equal to P into A minus Y. So in the next step, you need to segregate the y terms. You need to segregate the y terms on one side. So Ei into d square y by dx square is equal to, you split this equation, Pa minus Py. This becomes Pa minus Py. As I said, you need to segregate the y terms on one particular side. So Ei into d square y by dx square, Py you take to the LHS, it becomes plus Py is equal to Pa. Okay, again divide by Ei on both sides, dividing by Ei on both LHS and RHS, what you will get? D square y by dx square is equal to P by Ei into y is equal to P by Ei, okay, P by Ei into A. This is the equation we get, correct? This is the equation we get. So this is also, so here I should write plus sign, correct? D square y by dx square plus P by Ei into y is equal to P by Ei into A. What is the difference between this equation and the previous derivation equation? Here in the RHS, okay, in the RHS we have 0, in the RHS we have 0, but in this derivation in the RHS we have some term that is P by Ei into A. That is the difference. Okay. Now solution of above second order differential equation is, the solution of above equation is, above differential equation is, you will have same solution, same equation with slight difference. You will have same solution, y is equal to c1 cos x root p by I plus c2 sin x root p by I. I'll write the same equation now. y is equal to c1 cos, okay, x root p by Ei plus c2 sin x root p by Ei plus See, in the previous equation, we did not had any term in the RHS part. Okay, is equal to 0 it was, but here we have some constant. Okay, then some multiplication constant with respect to P by EI. What is the multiplication factor for this P by EI here in the RHS? A is the multiplication constant, that A will come here. That is the difference. That's it. Call this equation number 1. Okay, whatever the multiplication constant you get for this P by EI term, no, that term you need to write here along with the normal equation. Okay, I hope this is clear for you all. So where C1 and C2 are constants of integration, which should be determined by boundary conditions. This is the first step, students. First step is over now. Okay, first step is over. What is second step? Finding the constant C1 and C2 using boundary conditions. Now I'll write the headline as boundary conditions. Boundary conditions. I'll write the headline as boundary conditions. Now coming to the boundary condition. Okay, here you will have to use total 3 boundary conditions. Okay, you will have to use total 3 boundary conditions. Whenever you get fixed support, no, whenever you get fixed support, at that fixed support you will get 2 boundary conditions. Okay, so here at fixed support, when x equal to 0, y also becomes equal to 0. This is common condition. There is one more condition you get at this fixed support when x equal to 0. This is the first boundary condition. Second boundary condition is when x equal to 0, the dy by dx slope becomes equal to 0. Okay, slope of the curve is also equal to 0 at the fixed support. And third condition at point B, when x equal to L, y equal to how much? When x equal to L, y equal to, the deflection is A. Okay, so this is a third boundary condition. Okay, so when it is hinged support, no, here slope cannot be equal to 0. Okay, see, if you draw a tangent here, here you will have some slope. Okay, that is why only one condition will come in case of hinged support. Okay, that is x equal to 0, y equal to 0. But in case of fixed support, there won't be any slope at all. Okay, slope will be equal to 0. It will be the angle. It will be a straight line only. It will not be inclined line if you draw a tangent. Okay, that is why, remember, at fixed support there are 2 conditions you get: x equal to 0, y equal to 0. Similarly, when x equal to 0, dy by dx. Dy by dx is nothing but it is slope. Okay, it is nothing but slope. Y by x, it is nothing but slope only, theta. Okay, slope only, dy by dx equal to 0. So utilizing all these 3 conditions, we can taking x equal to 0, when x equal to 0, y is also equal to 0. This is the first condition. Okay, now we have the solution of the equation. You substitute y equal to 0 and x equal to 0 in this particular equation. What you will get? Therefore 0 is equal to c1 cos 0 plus c2 sin 0 plus a constant as it is. Okay, therefore 0 is equal to c1 cos 0 is c1 plus 0 plus a Therefore, C1 is equal to minus A. By this first condition, you got the value of C1, that is minus A. Coming to the second condition, what is the second condition, students? When x equal to 0, dy by dx equal to 0. When second condition, when x equal to 0, dy by dx equal to 0. Okay, dy by dx means differentiation of the equation with respect to the x. Okay, we know the value, we know the equation for y. Okay, so if you differentiate this equation with respect to x, you will get dy by dx. So differentiate equation 1 with respect to x. Okay, this equation. Therefore, dy by dx is equal to what is differentiation of c1 cos x root p by I minus c1 sin x root p by ei into differentiation of this bracket term. What is differentiation of this bracket term? Root p by ei. Okay, then differentiation of second term, c2 sin x root p by I, it becomes c2 cos x root p by ei, okay, into differentiation of bracket term, again it is root of p by ei plus what is differentiation of constant a, it is 0, it is 0. Okay, so we can rewrite this equation. Therefore, dy by dx is equal to the constants you take on one side minus c1 root p by ei into sin x root p by ei plus c2 root p by ei into cos x root p by ei. Okay, now you got dy by dx equation. Okay, you got the equation for dy by dx. Apply this condition. Substitute x equal to 0 and dy by dx equal to 0 in above equation. Okay, in above equation. Now dy by dx equal to 0 is equal to if you substitute minus c1 root p by ei into sin x is 0 is equal to c2 root p by ei into cos 0. So this term becomes 0. Therefore, 0 equal to c2 root p by ei. Okay, therefore c2 root p by ei equal to 0. Either, okay, from above equation either c2 equal to 0 or root of p by ei equal to 0. Okay, either c2 equal to 0 or root p by ei equal to 0. So which one is what's good, students? Here in these two conditions we can assume ct equal to 0 or we can assume root p by ei equal to 0. Which one what's put here? Just tell me. Any guess? Any guess here? See, C1 we have some value. C1 is equal to what? C1 is equal to minus A. Okay. You can take C2 equal to 0. But root of P by EI cannot be equal to 0. Okay. Because root of P by EI, it has got some buckling load P. Column has got some buckling load P, and it is also got the sectional properties, Young's modulus and moment of inertia. All values are there for column. So therefore, this term cannot be equal to 0. Okay, C2 can become equal to 0, but this term cannot be equal to 0 because buckling load P is there. Okay, Young's modulus is there, moment of inertia is there. Okay, therefore from above equation, from above conditions, the for any buckling load or crippling load, okay, it has got some value load. Even Young's modulus is there for column, moment of inertia is also there. Okay, for any crippling load, the root of P by EI cannot be equal to 0. Cannot be equal to 0. Therefore, we can take C2 equal to 0. Now we got the value of C2, we got value of C1. C1 is equal to minus A, C2 is equal to 0. You substitute C1 and C2 values in this equation 1. Okay. Therefore, substitute the values C1 is equal to, what is that? C1 is equal to minus A, now the C1 is equal to minus A and C2 is equal to 0 in equation 1. In equation 1 is what? Y equal to C1 is minus A cos X root P by EI plus C2 is 0. C2 is 0 plus A as it is, plus 0 plus A as it is. Okay. So we got one more equation. Call this as equation number 2 now. Okay, call this equation number 2. Now we have left with one more boundary condition. One more boundary condition is what? At x equal to L, y equal to A. At x equal to L, y equal to A. This condition. We will take third boundary condition. Now third one, third boundary condition. At x equal to L, y is equal to A. Okay. Now substitute x equal to L and y equal to A in equation 2. Therefore equation 2 becomes y is equal to A is equal to minus A cos L root of P by EI, okay, plus A. Okay, therefore minus A cos, so this A on LHS and A on RHS gets cancelled, minus A cos L root P by EI becomes equal to 0. Okay, so multiplying on minus 1 on both LHS and RHS, it becomes A cos L root P by EI equal to 0. Okay, so again from above equation, okay, from above equation, either A equal to 0 or cos L root of P by EI equal to 0. So which equation holds good? Again, think practically and tell me from above equation either A should be equal to 0 or cos L root P by EI equal to 0. See, A cannot be equal to 0 because the column has some deflection at length L A. This A cannot be equal to 0. Okay, practically from figure, but practically A cannot be equal to 0. If you want for refer figure, if you refer figure, you can come to know A cannot be equal to 0. Therefore cos L root of P by EI equal to 0. Okay. Therefore cos, which is equal to, so if cos L root P by equal to it has to become 0, then what should be the value of this L root P by I? Either it may be cos pi by 2 cos 90, okay, cos pi by 2, or cos 270, or 3 pi by 2, or cos 5 pi by 2, and so on. Okay, if you assume L root P by EI as theta, then theta value should be either pi by 2 or 3 pi by 2 or 5 pi by 2. Therefore taking least practical value, what you will get? L root P by EI is equal to pi by 2. Least practical value is 0 only. Sorry, pi by 2 only. Okay, therefore squaring on both sides, it becomes squaring on both sides, it becomes L square into P by EI is equal to pi by 2. Okay, therefore P becomes equal to pi EI divided by, here I did not square on the RHS term, no? RHS square I did not square. When you square pi by 2, it becomes pi square by 4, correct? Pi square by 4. So this becomes pi square EI by 4 L square. Therefore P is equal to pi square EI by 4 L square. This is the equation for crippling load or buckling load of the column when one end of the column is fixed and another end is free. That is pi square EI by 4 L square. When both the ends of the column are hinged, what is the formula we have? It is pi square EI by L square. Simply pi square EI by L square. Here pi square EI by 4 L square. That is the difference. Okay. So each and every derivation have interrelation between one another. Okay. You just need to understand what is the difference. Okay. What is the small differences are there, correct? Even in boundary condition and even in solution of the differential equation, small differences there. If you just remember those small changes, there is nothing in deriving these equations. Very easy, correct? Is that clear for you all students? Prashant, Abhishek, Vikas?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any doubts you have?
No, sir.
Okay. Take the attendance.